I mean, the great synergy here is we're working with SPK Network, and it's also building a DEX. So the DEX is the biggest problem for Hive. We need Bitcoin to Hive in a trustless way. Yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, these liquidity pools are coming, man. Like on the Honeycomb layer 2, as part of the SPK Network, that is going to have something called the SIP, which is a service infrastructure pool. It's probably about a year away, I think. So it's not something that's coming immediately, but it's something that's been conceptualized, talked about, worked on. People are starting to understand what it is and implement it. And this is just a pool where there is some mechanism whereby the blockchain provides you with something of value that you put in for. So you basically put money into the pool and you receive something out. So in this case, it will be Larynx miner tokens. So you'll put Hive into the pool and you'll receive Larynx miner tokens out, and those Larynx miner tokens will allow you to mine more efficiently than your compatriots who are also mining. So then you create this demand for putting liquidity into this pool. And then, of course, that liquidity can't be taken out by those same people because they've already bought something from the blockchain for it, right? So then that can be used to harvest fees from the liquidity pool, and those fees can go back to the community members themselves in the form of payments and support to infrastructure providers, payments into projects, payments into DAOs. So it's just a kind of slightly different take on the way we think a DeFi pool should work.
Yeah.
And then that, along with the wrapping mechanisms that we're working with on peer plays, where you can go from Hive to Bitcoin, Hive chain, Hive layer 1 to Bitcoin, Hive layer 1 to Ethereum chains, Hive layer 1 to Ethereum layer 2s, and Hive layer 1 to BSC and Polygon, things like that. So that's coming. That is being worked on. We've got a way forward with those guys. They're making progress on that. I believe that they finished the Ethereum side already. It's all in testing. So yeah, these things are coming. You know, these abilities to get liquidity to where it needs to be, to move it either onto the SPK Network layer 2 via Honeycomb, or to move tokens from Honeycomb onto the Ethereum chains and the Bitcoin and the Polygon chains and get liquidity over there. This is going to come. And Dan and I were talking about this yesterday. You know, it's almost certain that I think we basically have to build it in that we are going to get delisted from exchanges. Maybe it won't happen. You know, you can hope for the best, but plan for the worst, as you always say, Dan. And it's very clear that there's this regulatory narrative coming from this crypto meltdown that's just happened with FTX, which is two completely unrelated things, by the way, which is really weird to me. But they're going to try and regulate. So they're going to say, okay, all these cryptos are securities and they were unregistered securities, so delist them off your exchanges now. And yeah, I mean, I just see Hive falling into that category, even though it shouldn't, even though it can't, because there was no ICO, no pre-mine, no company, no CEO. But I see it falling in. I see exchanges delisting it because they're told to delist it. And so we need to make sure we've got our freaking game in gear by having these liquidity pools available so that we can get in and out of Hive without having to trust a centralized regulatable entity that can be told that Hive's a security, so delist it. You know?
Yeah, we shouldn't be relying on any centralized infrastructure at all. I mean, that's the whole goal. I know people think that's a lofty goal, but we're very close. One of our biggest pain points is our liquidity is really centralized on exchanges. We want to get that off of exchanges anyway. Yeah, they could power it up, but they'd get blocked by the 1 month. So that's not as big of a concern. But it's just the fact that they could shut us all off, and then you stop the flow of Hive. So we need to get these DEXs robust. And as you've seen, as you're briefly talking about the SIP and how the SPK Network and all of that goes in, when you're creating these networks, you have to be humble and you have to make sure that you capture all the value. That's why when you buy a Larynx miner token, it doesn't go into Matt and I's pocket. It doesn't go into a centralized entity's pocket. It goes into the SIP where it's going to be locked up. Well, that's providing liquidity, a permanent liquidity pool. And then with the fees, you turn that into a DAO-like fashion where the community can vote, goes to infrastructure, it can go to whatever. When they become bigger and bigger, it's a self-fulfilling loop. It becomes a community monopoly. These are things that's just game theory. This is how you try to build these networks, and you can get much more fancy with a layer 2 than a layer 1. So I just think that we are very close. We're building the initial technology that the SIP is going to run off using the Honeycomb technology. But yeah, it is a problem right now. You could say we sort of have our pants unzipped, right? We're sort of not ready for it.
Yeah.
But knock on wood, we have time. I don't I live in a world where it's the most terrible, and what we would have to use is just be scrappy on exchanges. I'm sure support for Leo would fly through the roof. I'm sure another DAO proposal would come out, and people would just hyper focus, because that's what happens with Hive. It's like, oh no, we smell smoke, and it's like, well, everyone just starts fucking grabbing pillows and getting ready for it. They're not running like we're ready for it. So if the need for it came, you would just see DAO proposals, you'd see people building, it'd become the main focus, and it would get done. We don't want it to have to come to that, obviously, but urgency is the birth of innovation, and people are still very comfortable with their sexes right now, so we just have to build it.
You got to be comfortable with your sex, Dan.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying before we really get on the wrong side of Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Before you know it, we're the woke mob. Centralized exchanges are what people are getting way too comfortable with. So, but luckily we have Leo Finance. Maybe we can get with those guys. I like to get everyone working on a goal in the same sort of arena, so we can help each other. Right? Doesn't make sense to keep building pathways to the same.
I'd love to see a way that because we're going to ultimately end up with these liquidity pools as well on the SPK network, and I'd love to see a way that we could take joint workloads from Leo Finance, give a little bit to ourselves, and then coordinate with them, and then they can do a bit, and we can kind of half each other's workload somehow. I'd love to see if we can make something like that happen.
Yep, exactly.